everyone, and welcome to episode 164 of Doctor Who Panel to Panel. This is Jeremy Bement, your host, welcoming you to a brand new episode, and let's get you up to speed as to what is going to be in this episode. We will start out like we always do by checking out the news, and we'll find out what is new in the world of Doctor Who comics and art and other Doctor Who kind of artistic-related projects and things that are in the news. And then we will open the Pandorica on something new in the way of Doctor Who comics that has come out over the past month or so. This time around, we are going to take a look at Part 10 of Liberation of the Daleks. That is the new part of this wonderful story that came out in Doctor Who Magazine, issue number 593. And then we will go into our interview segment, and this time around, I had the extreme pleasure of chatting with the editor of the Doctor Who line of comics from Titan Comics. His name is Jake Devine. I chatted with him a few years ago, and I just wanted to kind of touch base and find out what is new in the world of Doctor Who comics, find out what is going on with Titan Comics in way of putting out new Doctor Who content. And I had a wonderful chat with him, and I think you will really enjoy the insight this brings as to what is going to be coming from Titan in way of Doctor Who stuff. We do know we have that Dan Slott special coming out here shortly. We have the second part of Doomsday coming out from them, and we might even have a little bit of a tease as to what may be coming down the road. So there you go. That is the kind of the nuts and bolts of what's going on in this episode, Doctor Who Panel to Panel. Before we get into the show, I wanted to thank you for downloading this episode. I also wanted to mention a couple things. One, I have a website, which is DoctorWhoComics.com. You can find lots of Doctor Who news and comic and art-related content on there. Some of the stuff that I'll be mentioning in the news, you will be able to find out more about if you go to DoctorWhoComics.com. And I'd appreciate it if you check out my website. I also want to mention that past episodes of Doctor Who Panel to Panel can be found wherever you downloaded this episode. And also, if you're looking for even older episodes, ones that might not be on your podcast feed, do me a favor and check out archive.org. Do a search for Jeremy Bement or Doctor Who Panel to Panel, and you can find easy-to-download MP3 files of all the previous episodes. Lots of really good content in there, whether it be reviews of issues of Doctor Who comics that have come out in the past. The important part, I think, the part that I want to keep out there for history's sake is chats and interviews with people who have worked on Doctor Who comics over the years, whether it be editors, writers, artists. There's lots of really good interviews with people to find out, how they got into comics. What was it like working on Doctor Who? Why are they fans of Doctor Who? What do they like about the show? What do they like about comics? I highly encourage you, if you are the kind of geek who likes to hear about the craft of making comics, check out my previous episodes on archive.org. One final plug for myself, I have started a Patreon page. If you go to patreon.com/Doctor Who Panel to Panel, I'm trying to raise a little bit of money to make ends meet, to make this podcast, keep it out there for people. It does cost a little bit of money to do this, and I would like to help or ask people to help me out to keep these episodes coming. I do have a couple different plateaus where you can contribute. If you contribute at the $5 a month plateau, I know some people just love listening to interviews with creators. And if you contribute the $5 a month, you can listen to or download these episodes minus all this chatting that I'm doing now, and basically just have an interview-only episode. For $5 a month, you can have a couple of those a month, and you don't have to listen to me talk other than talking to guests. So that is an option that's on there. I'm trying to work up some other levels and things. So if you can do me a favor, please check out patreon.com/Doctor Who Panel to Panel and contribute $1 or $2 to help me cover the cost of keeping this podcast going and being hosted and out there on the internet. And with this intro out of the way, let us jump into the news. In Doctor Who comic news for this episode of Doctor Who Panel to Panel, let's start out like we always do by checking out the calendar and finding out what is going to be coming out or what has come out. We're going to take a look at July. We will start out with Thursday, July 20th. That is when Doctor Who Magazine issue number 593 was released over in the UK and also digitally. that has the new part of Liberation of the Daleks, which we'll be talking about here shortly. And then we will jump ahead to Wednesday, July 26th. Over here in the United States, Doctor Who Magazine issue number 590 came out at comic shop level. So if you are a collector of the physical media here in the United States and missed out on this issue, it was released through Diamond Comics back on the 26th. Now we're going to take a look at the month of August and see what's coming out. This coming Wednesday on August 2nd, from Titan Comics, Doomsday number 2 will be coming out in comic shops. And also, for some oddball reason from Diamond Comics, Doctor Who Magazine issue number 589 will be coming out here in the United States. So if you missed out on that one, chance for you to grab it at the comic store level, or they should be able to order it for you if you missed out. Then jumping ahead a couple weeks, the only other thing on the calendar is right now, should be on Thursday, August 17th. That is when Doctor Who Magazine issue number 594 should be coming out over in the UK on the newsstands as well as digitally. So that should be most of the releases that will be coming out, although some of the news that I have to cover will also cover releases as well. I did some searching on Amazon to find out about some stuff that was going to be coming out, along with some news that was released on other sources on the internet. So I thought I'd just kind of go over some stuff that will be coming out as far as like collected editions are going. Let me start out by saying there was the cover artwork was released for the Cybermen collection, the Cybermen The Ultimate Comic Strip Collection, which will be coming out over in the UK on September 1st, so that's not too terribly far away. It's going to be a pretty good-sized, massive book reprinting a lot of Cybermen stories from Doctor Who Magazine. This is something I'm really looking forward to, but unfortunately, according to Amazon here in the States, it's not going to be released until November 15th. But if you go to DoctorWhoComics.com, I do have the artwork for the cover posted, which features one of the Cybermen from the story The Flood, which is probably my favorite Cybermen story of all time. It also has a version of Croton, the Cyberman with a conscience, that just looks amazing. I can't wait for this collection to come out. I am a huge Cybermen fan. So that is something I'm really looking forward to. In other news, a while back I mentioned that the Fourth Doctor anthology is going to be coming out. This is a collection of Fourth Doctor stories from Doctor Who Magazine that will also feature the Star Beast story, which of course is what we're all of us comic fans are anxious to see for part of the 60th anniversary specials that are coming out. Well, we finally got a release date over in the UK. That'll be coming out on November 2nd, so people can grab that, and if they are unfamiliar with the Star Beast story, they'll be able to read it for themselves. As for a release date of that book here in the States, Amazon did not have it listed, so I don't know when it'll be coming out, but hopefully that's something that was just an oversight, and it will be coming out sometime soon. In other collection news, when you listen to my review of Liberation of the Daleks, you'll hear me mention looking forward to the collected edition of this coming out so I can read the story just in one fell swoop. There is on Amazon a listing or a date on the U.S. site for November 29th is when Liberation of the Daleks is going to be coming out from Amazon, so it should be roughly the same time in comic shops. I'm hoping it'll come out maybe a week or two ahead of that so that it will tie in more with the anniversary specials. To me, that makes more sense. Amazon might just be a week or two behind in way of them getting it from Panini, so that's when that's supposed to be coming out. But also from Amazon on that same date of the 29th, that is when the collected edition of the Titan Comics Doomsday trade paperback is supposed to be coming out. So one more thing to kind of tie in, not really tie in with the anniversary, but it's kind of gives us an idea of when Titan Comics is looking to have that collected two-part story together to come out as a trade paperback. And then last but not least, of course, everybody's anxiously awaiting, at least I am, I'm not sure about everybody else, but I'm pretty certain everybody is, waiting for Dan Slott's story, Once Upon a Time Lord, to come out. This is the 10th Doctor and Martha story that also has the 9th Doctor thrown in here for good measure. It is coming out as a hardcover edition from Titan Comics. It's supposed to be coming out on Amazon's website on October 10th. Might come out a little sooner from comic shops. However, there is the cover that they show on Amazon's website is their regular cover. There's also the Adam Hughes cover, which is going to be a comic store exclusive through Diamond. So if you want both of them, you'll have to kind of get them both different directions. So that is something I think everybody's looking forward to. I'm looking forward to the fact it's a hardcover. It's almost going to be like an annual, one of those old school annuals. So I can't wait to see this. So there's kind of an up-to-date listing of collected editions that are going to be coming out and dates according to Amazon. In other Doctor Who comic news, artwork has been released. I guess it's not really comic news, but it's more gaming news, art anyway. Magic the Gathering is, of course, coming out with a set of Doctor Who cards. If you go to DoctorWhoComics.com, my website, you can see an article from a little while back that featured some of the artwork that was released or teased for this set of Doctor Who cards. And over the past week or so, there's been a little bit more of a tease as a couple artists have released some of the pictures that they have done for these Magic cards. I did some grabbing of some pictures and are posting those. I'm trying not to steal from the artists. I want to promote their artwork and promote this Magic set. So please go to DoctorWhoComics.com to take a look at some of the promo art, and maybe you'll be really impressed with it, as I was. And I'm looking forward to this Magic set to come out. Last bit of news, I don't know if anybody is familiar with Doctor Who Podcast Day, but this is a thing that is going to be happening on August 9th. This is to celebrate all the Doctor Who podcasts that are out there, including myself, I guess. I'm going to try to celebrate it by putting out a special episode on that day. For those people who are unfamiliar, of course, everybody knows there's lots of Doctor Who podcasts out there. August 9th was the date of the very first Doctor Who podcast or Doctor Who related podcast, which was Doctor Who Podshock. It came out back in August 9th. I'm not sure exactly how long ago, probably 16, 17 years ago, back in the early infancy of podcasting. And somebody has decided to kind of mark that date as Doctor Who Podcast Day as a way of celebrating all the goodness that is Doctor Who podcasts that are out there, where you listen to this podcast or Radio Free Skaro or the Missing Episodes podcast or the all-new Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Check it out for this day. Mark it on your calendar, August 9th. This may be a day where there's lots of Doctor Who podcasts coming out there for you to listen to. I know I'm going to try to put together something a little special, and I hope you enjoy and celebrate Doctor Who podcasts the way I'm going to. And I think that's kind of it as far as news for this time around. So let's go into a review. It's time to open the Pandorica on a new issue of Doctor Who in way of comics. And this time around we are going to check out Liberation of the Daleks Part 10. This is in the new issue of Doctor Who Magazine, issue number 593. It is written by Alan Barnes, art by Lee Sullivan, coloring by James Affredi, Roger Langridge did the lettering, and Marcus Hearn is the editor on this. And we last left off with the Doctor leaving the Dalek amusement world to go down the road in time and see what happens. But as this part of the story picks up, we go to find out what Georgie has been up to, which is the fake version of Georgette. And she has been captured by Daleks, or the imaginary Daleks, or the ones that don't really exist, just like Georgie doesn't. She has come to them hoping to get their aid to become real, have them help her become real. And so she has to reveal to them that they are fake. And they're like, we don't believe you, we need to find out. So in kind of a nice tribute montage, the Emperor Dalek goes to the brain machine, a super calculator beyond compare, to ask it kind of the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. And they find out that they are artificial. So this has kind of been what Georgie has figured out a way to work with the Daleks to bring the Doctor, capture him, and find a way to become real. And that's what they do. The Daleks put the TARDIS into kind of a electrified cage so the Doctor can't escape. And Georgie says, I want to become real. And the Doctor's like, I'm more than willing to help you become real, but we need to stop the Daleks. But that's kind of where the plan goes awry. We find out that in the Dalek amusement world, Georgie is kind of linking up with Georgette, and the Daleks of the two worlds are kind of linking together. And that's kind of where this part of the story leaves off. As far as the story goes, I still find the story really intriguing, although to me it's a little bit confusing keeping track of which Georgie is Georgie and which Georgette is Georgette. Getting this story once a month in kind of 6-page increments, to me makes it kind of choppy. I have to go back and almost reread the previous issue or two to kind of get up to speed. And even then I feel a little bit confused. I think Alan Barnes' writing is solid, and I think that once this story finishes up in a couple more parts, that we will have a good, solid, cohesive story, and I'm really looking forward to the collected edition coming out because I want to sit down and read it all in one fell swoop. Right now it's kind of hard to do when you have to grab every single issue and read the 6 pages and then move on to the next. But as far as this part of the story goes, I thought it was good. It furthers the story. It gives you quite a bit, and has Georgie wanting to become real and willing to do whatever she needs to do to accomplish that, which is working with the Daleks. Lee Sullivan's artwork, once again, is great. For those people who have read the classic Dalek strips from back in the 60s, looking at this, especially I think it's page 3 of this story, where the Emperor Dalek goes down kind of into the archive of the Dalek vault. You'll see a lot of stuff from those Dalek strips. The Penta-Ray is the one that grabbed my attention because not too long ago I did a review about that story that had the Penta-Ray. But you see lots of stuff in there on Mechanoid. You see things from the history of Daleks, especially the comic strip Daleks, that just kind of, for us old Doctor Who comic readers, it is a really nice touch, and kudos to Lee Sullivan. I'm sure he had a blast adding those things in there. The story, I think the story is going to be really good by the time we get to the end. It's kind of hard to review it piece by piece, whether it accomplishes the task of moving the story forward. This one did. Good job, Alan Barnes. Great job, Lee Sullivan, doing some wonderful artwork, and I can't wait to see how this story wraps up in the next 2 parts. So there you go. There's my review of Liberation of the Daleks. Exterminate! Today on Doctor Who Panel to Panel, I have the pleasure of chatting once again with he's group editor for Titan Comics, but he's also overseeing the Doctor Who line. This is Jake Devine. Jake, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Jeremy, thanks for having me. Great to be back again.
Yeah, awesome. Well, let's start with the fact that Doctor Who is coming back on TV here in November with some specials. Mm-hmm. And last year, Titan was supposed to come out with a special, a Doctor Who comic written by Dan Slott, and it kind of got delayed until this year. Can you tell me a little bit about the kind of the rationale behind why it was postponed?
Sure. I mean, really, it was just we wanted to have, the biggest bang, let's get this book out and get most attention for it. So I think with, the anniversary year and the fact that we now have, David Tennant coming back, and of course our book stars David Tennant, while it's not quite, the new iteration, it's still, very much on people's radar that David Tennant is back in Doctor Who. And I think we just thought, that's really going to, put this book, in people's minds and, make it really relevant, where everything sort of changed in Doctor Who in the last year or so. It's sort of this year is, this is the Doctor Who year. And I think we really wanted to make sure that, the book was out in its best possible time. So I think that was our main rationale for moving it from where it was.
Sure, that makes total sense. Was it a challenge to be able to get Dan Slott to do a Doctor Who book? I know I've talked to Dan Slott in the past, and he's a huge Doctor Who fan, which I think anybody who follows him knows. Was it tough to work out a deal with him, or because he was pretty much Marvel exclusive?
Yeah, so I'm not sure. I mean, that all the contract stuff, was done sort of by my publisher and the higher ups and stuff between him and Marvel and Dan. And I think it was pretty tough originally because obviously Dan is Marvel exclusive and has been for a while. He's their main number one guy. But I think because Dan was so passionate about it, it's something like he kept pushing for. He loves Doctor Who. He really wanted to. It's a lifelong mission for him. So it's one of the things where he kept pushing and obviously really wanted him. My publisher is a big Doctor Who fan himself, so it was like sort of a dream to have the two collaborate in that sort of, writer and property, put them together. So I think eventually something was just worked out where, he was allowed to, make his wish come true, essentially, as long as it didn't impact anything he was doing on Marvel. And, that's always going to be his main focus. This is sort of like his dream project. And they're like, okay, well, we'll let you do it as long as, you don't keep up with all our, the Fantastic Four and everything else that you were doing in the past. As long as that's all good, you can do this one a year thing for us. So obviously he's done his first one, and we've got currently 3 planned for him to do. So he's currently working away on the second one, but this will be the first volume that we've got from him coming out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. And did he come up with how did the story idea for this first special come about? Did he just say, here, I've already got the story out, here's my idea, and you just kind of let him go to town on it?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, Dan obviously had been wanting to write Doctor Who comics for so many years. He's had so many ideas, and I think it was just, we had chats about all the different things he wanted to do, and we sort of whittled it down to, all right, in this special, what are we going to do? So we ended up focusing on the 10th Doctor and Martha for our main story. And he came up with this whole new villain called the Pyramess, and the whole gimmick of the story, if you will, is Martha telling the story of the Doctor's adventures to these villains called the Pyramess, who feed on stories. So that's the general gist of that story. And then we also got a Doctor Who backup story featuring the 9th Doctor and Rose. Again, I think just sort of ticking the boxes of Dan's, wish list of different Doctors. He'd love to write for all the Doctors, but I think it's sort of, let's do 1 or 2 at a time. So the main one we stuck with was, let's do a 10th Doctor main story, and then we'll throw in the little 9th short in there as well. And it does actually sort of tie in with the overall theme of the book as well.
Okay. It comes out in October, if I remember correctly. Am I correct? There's supposed to be like a regular softcover version, like a comic book special, and then there's going to be a hardcover as well?
So they're both going to be hardcover editions, but we've got 2 different variants of the covers. So the original book cover is going to be by Christopher Jones. You'll see on the front Doctor Who himself with all the villains arrayed around him, which is really cool. Like, I was big fan of Chris's work. I'd love to get him on everything Doctor Who. We did. So on this one we had like a few different artists involved. We did hope to have Chris do a lot more, but just due to scheduling and things like that, we got him, for just part of the book, which actually works out really nicely in the way that it's the story's told with different parts. It actually works to have those different artist styles in there, but you'll see when you read it. And then we've got a really cool cover from Adam Hughes, which is our Diamond exclusive cover. So that's available through Diamond and the comic market. So you've sort of got 2 different covers for 2 different markets, really.
Awesome. Well, I think it's really cool that you're doing a hardcover version of it. I'm partial to hardcovers in the first place because they look really nice on my bookshelf. So
it makes it's a big, like, sort of a special book, so you want to give it that sort of prestige. It's not just our regular comic series run. It is, this is our Dan Slott special, so we give it something unique for it and make it a hardcover, which I think is going to look really nice when it's out.
Yeah, awesome. So since it's been a little while since I've chatted with you, I kind of want to go back to the 13th Doctor mini series that you had been doing. And one of the questions I had, I thought Jodie Houser did a good job telling the stories that she did with the 13th Doctor, but I was kind of wondering why the 10th Doctor was involved in back-to-back mini-series stories. Was that kind of an idea of hers that she wanted to put forth, or was it more of like a marketing thing because there's plenty of David Tennant fans out there, or kind of what was the rationale behind that?
So, I mean, it was a little bit of both. I think the initial idea came from Jodie herself. She wanted to tie in. So with the first story, how many go back to the story was Little Help from My Friends. So with the Weeping Angels. So she really wanted to get the Weeping Angels involved, and the fact that obviously that came from the Blink episode, and that's sort of all weaved in together. So I think her initial idea was to bring that kind of side of the story into it, and so it really made sense to bring David Tennant and Jodie Whittaker's Doctors together in that story. And I think we just got such a good response from that. It just made sense to sort of, try our luck and do it again with something different. So that really worked nicely. And then After that followed Time Lord Victorious, so that was our main actual 10th Doctor story in that respect. But because it was, Jodie writing, and we tried to tie that where Time Lord Victorious was a part of the whole bigger BBC event that was going on that tied into all these different stories around that overarching narrative. We wanted to still sort of ground it down and make it tighten and make it part of our comic series. So we sort of found a way to put 13 in there to sort of tie all that, story together. So it's one big narrative, and make it one cool story that people can read across the what is effectively the year 2 of 13th Doctor stories.
Okay. Speaking of Time Lord Victorious and it being the first of the multimedia big stories, was it a challenge to do a story that fit in with all this other stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was trying to figure out what story we could tell that then made sense to obviously everything else that, Big Finish were doing, BBC audiobooks, and everyone was doing. So we all had a lot of collaboration in that respect. Like there was a lot of talks in the beginning about what this is going to look like. All the different sort of doctors would be involved and what made sense for who to do what and which parts of the story. And we had James Goss involved, who was sort of the showrunner of that. So he was a big help in us, chatting with him on like, okay, this is the story we want to do. And he would come in and say, okay, well, this is, you doing this would then affect that over there, or, oh, this, you should do this because that will really help tie in with what these guys are doing. And he worked with Jodie, our writer, on that closely as well. And that was really nice collaboration. So challenging, but worked to a good effect, I think.
Sure. One of the other series that took place in between then and now is the Master miniseries, or the Missy miniseries that Jodie did. Now, was that a character that Jodie was really gung-ho to do and wanted to tell a story?
Yeah. So initially the rationale for that was, that was sort of the Master's sort of 50th anniversary year. So we thought, let's try something different. We've done a lot of Doctor stories. Let's try and do a Master story, and in this case, Missy, because one, we think Missy's a really great character, and two, we knew that Missy was a favorite of Jodie's, and that she'd always, every time we'd do interviews and stuff, she'd always mention that I'd love to write Missy. So the fact that we had those, our sort of idea and her, wish list, putting that together just made sense. So and I'm really happy with how that came out, because I think that's one of the favorite stories I've worked on.
I think character. Yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun, and I thought Jodie did it just like she's doing now with the Doomsday series with Missy in it. Jodie has a really good grasp of the character of Missy, and especially the vocalization of Missy. She definitely has that sound to her when you read the comic.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's definitely one of Jodie's highlights, is the way she can just capture those characters on screen in the comics, just with dialogue. She really nails like who they are and how they sound. It's very, very, very nice.
Sure. And then following that, we had the Origin miniseries featuring the Fugitive Doctor, or the Joe Martin Doctor. Was that an idea that you came up with, or another Jodie one where she was like, I want to tell a story with this character? And beyond that, was it tough to get the BBC to give approval for something like that, as far as doing a story with a doctor that may be used somewhere down the road?
So I think that was sort of partly my idea, but it was a bit of a discussion in editorially between in our team, thinking, what could we do next that's sort of different, in the same way that we did Missy. I mean, because that was critically a hit, and we thought, wow, we've done something different, it's really worked. Let's try something else.
Sure.
And we wanted to make it relevant at the time. So obviously we had the 13th Doctor's series on at the time. So we wanted to sort of try and make it relevant to what people were watching. And you had this whole new, story of, oh, look, the Timeless Child. There's all these different iterations of the Doctor that we've never seen before. So it just made sense for us to, let's pick up this Joe Martin Doctor who people really resonated with, and had a good reaction from just one episode. And we thought, well, there's tons to explore there. So it was it was a little bit difficult at start because obviously it was, where stuff is current on the BBC, they tend to, they don't want to give too much away from us because if they've got plans for things, they don't want us to,
yeah, exactly,
give anything away or change what, give something in our story that actually contradicts what they've got planned. So you've got to try and play around it a little bit. But eventually they were happy with us using that story, and we managed to find a way that tied in with what they were doing or what they had planned to do, without contradicting anything, and making it sort of an original story and adding to the mythology of that Doctor and that series, which we thought would be really cool for fans, because it's adding to the world of Doctor Who, giving them something they can't or haven't got on screen. And particularly at the time, I think, where I can't remember if it was before or after Chris Chibnall had said he was leaving, or I think it was maybe just before or around the time. But that sort of helped a little bit, I guess, because it meant that, as far as he was concerned, he wasn't then, his time was coming to an end. He wasn't pursuing any more Doctor stories on that front, and the Joe Martin Doctor. So that gives us a little bit more freedom for that. Okay, well, if we know there's not going to be any more plans, that's what gives a bit more freedom for us to explore this character more without having to worry about conflicting with what's going to be planned for in the future.
Sure. The I guess kind of the underlying mainstays of these series that we've been talking about is you've had Jodie Hauser doing the writing on them, and Roberta Ingranata doing the art duties on it. You have a good solid team that tells some good stories with really good artwork. Have you had any ideas or thoughts of maybe doing another Doctor series with, and maybe bringing in a new writer or a new artist?
I think that's discussions to be had. I mean, because where we've got obviously the new era and the new Doctor, we initially, in previous series or previous Doctors for every series, we sort of had different collaborations and different teams. So that's definitely something that's in discussion. But obviously, we love the work that Jodie and Roberta do. So that's something that's sort of, I guess you'll see in the future what happens to that. But yeah.
And right now they're working on the Doomsday series, which has the Doomsday, your slot in this big Doomsday story. Has it been kind of easier to do this one because the way the story is structured, with it kind of every part being like an hour of this big 24-hour story, they could say to you, okay, you're going to have this character that you can have do kind of whatever you want. I would think, as far as it doesn't necessarily have to tie in with any other part other than Doom is trying to find the Doctor.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's simpler in some ways, but it definitely had its own unique challenges, because where there is a wider narrative, we still had to sort of tie in the elements to make sure that what we're doing here aligns with what everyone else is doing, and it doesn't contradict anything. Particularly with where, in some instances, we've covered similar characters or places, locations, etc., that other people have done, but just with our different story, and making sure that it makes sense and everything's in continuity. So there's definitely challenges in that respect, and also where the BBC had this plan to launch sort of every hour or so in a certain time frame, and wanted it to release in the exact hour order of this countdown. So it's figuring out how, particularly I think the format of this series was tough to figure out, because we wanted it to fit with what they were doing, but also still make it a good product that we're not sort of changing just to make it fit for the sake of fitting. So I think where we ended up was sort of similar to what we were planning to do with the Dan Slott special, but we did the comics first. So we've done two issues of Doomsday, which should both be out now, I believe.
I think the second issue comes out this coming week.
Yeah, issue 2 is about to be out. And then that will be collected into a nice hardcover format, because again, it's sort of like an event book. This is a big part of the BBC transmedia event. So it's something unique, which I think would be really cool to have as a hardcover edition.
Awesome.
But yeah, so the way we've done it, we were assigned 4 hours of the story, So again, figuring out how we were going to cover that, because essentially each hour is a different mission that Doom is completing. And obviously in a comic, you could spend a long time doing an hour, or you could condense it down, because obviously if we've only got a limited amount of issues to tell it in, that the challenge is how do we make something exciting and engaging in a short space of time. But actually it sort of benefited, because with the story we're telling it, that we could, and the short space in it, we could keep up the pace and do something that was really a lot of action, keeping things moving, and heighten the sense of tension that Doom actually is running out of time and has to get through these missions quickly. So that benefited us nicely. And again, we had Jodie on board, who's really good at taking concepts and just really making them her own and making them work to what needs to be, and still bringing out the characters, and again bringing Doom to life, because Doom is a completely new character for us in the Who universe.
Cool. The first issue I thought was a lot of fun, and once again Jodie did a good job of capturing the sound of Missy, and I haven't really been following all of the parts of this big Doomsday story as far as the multimedia stuff, but it was nice seeing Doom actually, considering she's supposed to be the universe's greatest assassin, actually do some assassinating work in the first issue. It seems like that was the thing that was missing from me from the stuff that I had read previously. So that was a nice thing to see, and I thought Roberta did a really good job of capturing that moment on the page.
That's awesome. And again, because that was a challenge as well in making sure that this character was, who's new, is something that people are gonna is going to appeal to people and gonna get excited by her story, because obviously she's completely new in this medium. And I think again, Jodie just did a really good job on that. And also again, getting to bring in Missy was a lot of fun. It's almost like a spiritual sequel to the previous Missy that we did.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was great to bring her back.
Sure. This year has been kind of quiet on the Doctor Who front as far as like TV goes, just because we're in between eras and there hasn't been a lot going on. Titan, as a publisher of Doctor Who comics, has been rather quiet as well. We've had kind of a big gap in between the origin story and these two issues of the Doomsday series. Did Titan just kind of decide, well, there's not a lot of publicity right now for Doctor Who, we'll just kind of lay low and get our plans in the works for what we're going to have coming up once Doctor Who is back on TV? Or were there talks about maybe doing something to fill the gap?
I think essentially it was pretty much the first point. I mean, so we reached the end of Origins, and we were working on the Dan Slott special, and then it was then Doom had been in the works for a while, so that was sort of the main thing we were working on. And then after that was like, what were our next plans going to be? And essentially it was sort of around that time where things had been announced. We'd had meetings with the BBC sort of about May last year, where they sort of say, hey, here's the plans that we're going to do. It was Russell had come back, and we were like, okay, so there's going to be lots of changes. And it was like, well, now we know this is sort of going to be happening in the anniversary year. It makes sense for us to slow down a little bit. Let the Dan Slott special get out there, let the Doom get out there, and then really make sure we've got a good solid plan to launch with when this whole new era of Doctor Who begins. So that's sort of pretty much been our focus in the meantime, has been prepared for what we're going to do next.
Sure. With Russell coming back to work on Doctor Who, has it been everybody talks about how Chibnall was very hush hush and tight, ran a tight ship as far as letting people know what his plans were with Doctor Who. Russell T Davies, on the other hand, is everybody reports is kind of the exact opposite. He wants to share the wealth and put forth Doctor Who as a big product. Has it been easier to work with the BBC and with Russell's team, doing whatever is going to be coming up for you as far as like the Shudigatwa Doctor, and even with or just whatever plans Titan has for Doctor Who stuff coming forward?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that Russell has been, so much more engaged with all the licensees. He's definitely he's not just thinking of this new era as the show, he's thinking it as a new era of everything Doctor Who. And he's, while he's doing everything for the show, he's thinking of, what merchandise, comics, books, everything he's got in mind. So that's been really helpful for us because he's been very much, hey, this is what we're doing. Hopefully that gives you ideas for what you guys can do. So it's not us just sort of like scrambling around thinking, oh, what can we do? Oh, no, we can't do that. It's, oh, okay, so this is the direction we're going. That's given us loads of, things to work with. So that's been really good.
Oh, well, that's awesome. That's great to hear. Now that we're going into Russell's era and we're going to have a new Doctor, and there's been reports that there's going to be Doctor Who TV spin-offs on Disney Plus and stuff. I'm sure there's still plans in the works from Titan, and I'm sure you can't really elaborate a lot onto what's going to be going on. But when Titan first took over the Doctor Who license, we had a 10th Doctor series, an 11th Doctor. We end up with a 12th Doctor series. Can us comic book fans or fans of Doctor Who comics be expecting, along with a Doctor Who comic, maybe some other stuff as well, and maybe have a couple or 3 comics, to look forward to somewhere down the road, or is that still kind of in the works?
I mean, a lot of things are still sort of TBD. I mean, we definitely, with Ncuti Gatwa coming as the new Doctor, we definitely want to, get on that. I mean, we'd love to see Ncuti in comics, and I think that's going to be our main focus for the future initially. But yeah, with the wider universe of Doctor Who opening up with all these spin-offs and stuff that are supposedly planned, I think, in the same way that we did Torchwood comics previously as well, I think there's no reason why we, wouldn't do similar things with that and have multiple comics. I don't think we want to do too many, because I think there's such thing as too many. But yeah, there's definitely an opportunity for different titles, whether it's different Doctors or other things like potentially Torchwood that we did. Definitely, I don't see why we wouldn't do those.
Yeah, I always thought that doing like an anthology book would be neat, and especially if they are going to do spin-offs. If you had an anthology that would have a couple different stories within one, monthly book or bi-monthly book or something like that, would be kind of double the bang for your buck, and you can tell like shorter, smaller chapters, but still put forth, more of the Doctor Who universe. So, well, Jake, everybody's excited about what's going to be coming out for Doctor Who as far as TV goes, but me being a Doctor Who comics fan, I've been enjoying what Titan's been putting out. I'm looking forward to see what's going to be coming out with. Well, I'm definitely excited about Dan Slott's special, but I'm also looking forward to see what we're going to get next year from Titan when the new series starts up, and the product that's going to be kind of accompanying that. So thank you for taking time to chat with me today, and I look forward to seeing what is coming down the road.
No problem. I think we've got a lot of exciting stuff that's going to be coming up. Particularly Dan Slott's going to be a great issue, and then next year I think there's going to be loads of exciting new stuff for you to get your hands into.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. Well, thanks for chatting with me today.
Brilliant. Thank you.
I want to thank Titan Comics Doctor Who editor and group editor Jake Devine for joining me on this podcast. I haven't talked to him for probably about 3 years or so, and it was nice to catch up, find out what Titan Comics has coming down the line in the way of Doctor Who comics, kind of get his feedback on what they have done so far over the past few years with the 13th Doctor, with Missy, and the other media tie-ins that they have done. So it was nice to kind of get a little bit of feedback from him as to what the company was thinking when they were doing these. And I hope you appreciated this interview as much as I enjoyed listening to his responses. And that is it for this episode of Doctor Who Panel to Panel. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. Thank you very much for downloading this episode. Please do me a favor, and if you have Doctor Who fans, especially ones that may have lapsed over the past year or so since the show hasn't been on the air, and now with the specials coming back, the 60th anniversary right around the corner, Do me a favor, if you have friends that are Doctor Who fans that are also comic book fans, please point out this podcast to them. Get them to download and listen to an episode. The more listeners I get, the better off I am. The more this podcast gets promoted on the internet, and I would appreciate it. So I hope you enjoy this episode. Another episode coming out in a couple weeks, and until then, this is Jeremy Bement wishing you well, and until next time, bye. Doctor Who Panel to Panel, the podcast about Doctor Who comics, thanks you for downloading this episode. Let us know what you thought about this episode or of Doctor Who comics in general. You can find us socially on Facebook at Doctor Who Panel to Panel, on Twitter at Doctor Who P2P, 2 being the number 2, and online at DoctorWhoComics.com. Download previous episodes via your favorite podcast service and find the complete catalog of episodes featuring amazing interviews with creators past and present at archive.org. Just search for Doctor Who Panel to Panel. Thank you.